Alright guys, I'm going to show you how I make kombucha. What you need is a gallon of distilled water, a tea kettle. I use a gallon glass container. I got these at Walmart. If you notice, I do not wash them. I just heard somewhere that you don't need to wash them. What I've done is I've filled up my kettle with full, and it's going to probably put enough hot water to reach about here on both containers. I make 2 gallons at a time. Here's my SCOBY hotel, and you can see there are lots of SCOBYs in there. So you just need 1 SCOBY to start. You're going to put some tea bags in. I use 2 different kinds. I use black tea and green tea. So I'll put in a gallon, I'll put 5 tea bags of black and 5 tea bags of green. You can do whatever you want. Flavored, all black, all green, I don't care. Whatever you want to do. I just happen to like that combination. So when the water boils, I'm just going to put about that much water in each one. You don't need to fill it all the way up with hot water, just enough to let the tea bags steep. Then once they steep, I'll scoop them out, squeeze extra tea out, and then fill the rest of those up with the cool water, which will cool it off. And because you don't want to put your SCOBY in until your water is down to maybe room temperature, is what all the gurus say. So it's easier to cool it back down by just heating enough water to steep the tea. And then somewhere around here I've got another gallon, which you won't use a full 2 gallons because you're using SCOBY, takes up displacement, and you also usually want about a cup of your starter fluid, your liquid, from the Kombucha hotel. That's real vinegary stuff right in there, and it helps jumpstart the kombucha fermentation. So once that comes off of the kettle, we'll take it to the next step. Okay, the kettle just heated. So I'm going to pour basically equal parts. Yeah, so it brings it up right to that bottom line. So next I'm going to take my wooden stir, stir that tea around, let it steep. I'll press it against the sides of the container, kind of help get that initial tea blended with the hot water. Now a lot of times if I'm busy, I'll get that going like that, and I'll just throw a rag over it, and if I got places to go, I'll just let it, cool off on its own, the room temperature. So sometimes I'll do it at night before I go to bed, and then it'll be there in the morning ready to go. But I'm gonna let this cool off, let it steep for several minutes, and then I'm gonna come back and take the rest of this water and pour in there in equal amounts, and then crack another one open. But I'm going to be cognizant to leave enough room at the top, maybe come up to about right here, and leave enough headroom so that I can put a SCOBY in and a cup of the SCOBY juice in there. So that's the next step. I'll come back to that. Okay, we're back. So next, we're going to take the tea bags out. Here's a little trick I do. There's a lot of tea bags in there. So I'm going to scoop them out with a little doodad like this. I'm going to press the tea out as much as possible. And I'm going to dump it back in my kettle, because once you're done with all these tea bags, there's plenty of tea still left in these bags to make a couple good cups of coffee. So don't just throw these things away. I just throw them right in the kettle, put some water in it, run it through a cycle, and make myself a hot cup of tea. Cuppa, as they say in England, where I lived for about 3 years, and that's the one thing I didn't think I would cotton to would be hot tea. Actually developed a pretty good affinity for it. And what's interesting is you hear the term tea time. Hey, it's tea time, and I used to think that, oh, okay, tea time was around 5 o'clock in the evening, somewhere around that neighborhood. And when I heard somebody say it's tea time, I thought they literally got their tea out and made hot tea and drank it. Actually, tea time is dinner time. It's time to go to dinner. So, kind of weird how that works. But you tuck in. You tuck in around the kitchen table and have your dinner or your tea time. So, that's a good scoop right there. Let's see if you can see that. Yep. So this is still fairly warm, but it's been sitting probably about 30 minutes, so at least it's good and steeped. And almost done. There's one more tea bag. No, maybe that's just a piece of SCOBY. Okay, so we're going to take the rest of the water and this is going to help cool it off. That takes care of that gallon. Normally I use distilled water in both. I don't know where I got this. I think this is a leftover gallon of water that I was going to use to make mead in. It's spring water, so don't think it's going to affect the ability to ferment the kombucha. That gets us right up to the top of each one. Okay, now we're going to take a measuring cup. Let me go find that measuring cup. Okay guys, what I did was I filled the rest of these up with water. And then I took my 1 cup of measuring cup and I got me a good cup full of juice and poured 1 in each. So we've got tea that's been brewed, mixed well, and then filled up with water. It's cool to the touch. It's got the cup of kombucha juice. Only thing left now is to put the SCOBY in. By the way, you're hearing my coffee pot, my tea kettle brewing over here. I did fill that up with all the tea bags. I wonder why nobody's thought of that before. Why can't you just brew your tea or whatever you're brewing straight in, if you're brewing tea that is, straight in a kettle. I used to do that all the time. Anyway, I put all, was that 20 tea bags? That's going to make several good cups of tea. Okay, I got my digital thermometer here, so I'm going to turn it on. Okay, showing 72 is the current temperature, and that's the temperature that I can set up. I want to see how hot something is, so I'm going to drop that in just to be sure. So it jumped up to 79, 82, 84, 86. Might go up one more time. Yeah, 86 is room temperature when you don't have the air conditioner on, yeah? Let's try this other, double check. It's 84, 82, so it's cooler than the other. So anyway, that's close enough for me, as long as it's not 90 plus degrees, super hot. All right, so now, whoops, hold on guys. My phone fell off its perch. Okay, we're still rolling. All right, so now all that's left is to fish out a SCOBY, and I use a wooden implement to do this. These things are kind of, they look like and feel like a little bit like a jellyfish. I mean, they are kind of nasty looking, but that ought to be a pretty good one right there. So we're going to pop that in there, and let's see if we can get us another one. Okay, and normally I'd like to have a little bit more form, like a good round one, and I could probably fish one out of there, but that ought to be good enough right there. And that's it. That's all there is to it. All you do now is you put a cloth over it. Some people will take rubber band or string. You don't need to do that. All you're doing is trying to keep the flies out. But you do want it breathable, so you don't want to put a lid, like a metal lid or a plastic lid, and crank it down. You want it to breathe and get some air. So anyway, I'll put this on a kitchen counter up against the wall, out of the way. Generally in about 3 days I'll start testing it. And when it's time to kind of taste test, just get you a small measuring cup and just dip a little bit out and taste it and see how you like it. And then go one more day and see how you like it. And you'll find there's probably a sweet spot where you're going to really like it. Maybe it's 4 days for you, maybe it's 5 days. The longer you leave it, the more strong and vinegary it gets, more mild on the short side. And you can always throw a slice of lime in and some ginger. That really gives it a bump in taste. I really like that combination. I learned that at one of the fellows at Jack's former workshop. So I've got plenty of SCOBY here. Uh-oh, my tea's boiling over. Put too much water in there. Maybe that's why you don't do it. So I got plenty of SCOBYs to. I will say, after your kombucha is finished and you're ready to maybe pour it into your container and put it in the refrigerator, pour about a cup or two back into this, because it tends to be more SCOBY than liquid, and you want to keep enough liquid in there so that you've always got enough that you can start the next batch with. So yeah, do that. Sacrifice a couple cups and put it back in there, and you're good to go. Hope that helps. Have any questions, let me know. I'll be glad to try to clear it up for you. Thanks.